Yeah.
Very good evening to everyone. We are here with yet another journey exploration series, and today I'll not speak that much why we are doing this session, but we'll explore why we are doing this session. So this exploration is required to understand why the journey will teach us many lessons to cover multiple perspective of two individuals together. And today we'll introduce two of us on our platform On Your Growth. So I'll introduce founder and co-founder of Arsha Sam Yoga School of Vedanta, and my favorite and my beloved co-guide or mentor in my YAC time. So he's Arvind KS, and another co-founder Medha. She is working with us, and they both are together from maybe a year or so with this institute. And it is a very great journey that we are going to explore with the two different individuals, but the sector was the same, but the destiny was different. So we'll start. So can we start the session with one Om and three Shanti as usual we have learned?
Definitely.
So we'll sit together. We'll join our hands. Inhale deeply.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
And slowly open our eyes. With this beautiful vibration, I'll start the discussion. And first question to both of you. Anyone can answer that, that's upon you. We do have a different thought process in which how you have come up with this yoga as your career, because it's the basic how you've started.
Okay. So I'll start with that. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to yoga when I was in my primary school. So we had a nearby yoga center very close to my home. In fact, in the same street we had a yoga center. So that was one of the main reasons for my parents to get me enrolled was because the yoga classes used to be early in the morning, like 6 o'clock it used to start. So it would be a good habit for me to wake up early in the morning. So for that reason actually they got me enrolled. And I started making a lot of new friends there, and slowly, though I was enrolled into the program not for yoga's sake, slowly I was introduced more and more into yoga, and I started liking it more and more. Continued it passively. Once in a while I used to go at least 3-4 times in a week I used to go. I used to miss the classes, I used to sleep off sometimes, would not get up early. Yeah, that's how actually it started. But after I did the YIC course at SVSA Yoga University, which is where I met Bhavit, he was my batchmate there. So after I did the course, I started understanding that there is so much more to yoga. It's not just what you do 1 hour in the morning, but there is so much more to do. And even if you spend your whole lifetime in studying it, time is not enough. There is so much there to learn. So from there actually everything changed, and I got more serious into the field of yoga and took it as a profession. Yeah.
Ghosting.
Yeah, so I started because my mom joined, so I just joined with her. There was a person near my house who used to teach Shivananda yoga. So for many years, every day I was going, and I didn't know anything else. I just simply used to go to class, do what he said, and come back. And like this, I did for many years. And one day, I couldn't remember the last time I had been angry. I just simply could not remember when I had gotten upset or angry the last time. And it had to be because of yoga, there was no other reason. So then I started noticing more what it is actually doing to me. Physically, I was fitter. Mentally, I was so calm. I was so peaceful. And if I gave a gap, some break for doing yoga, then all sorts of disturbing thoughts and disturbing emotions used to come. But if I do, I am peaceful, I'm sorted. So I really enjoyed this. Then I started understanding more about yoga and I really liked it. It challenged me. So then I took it up seriously and pursued it.
Okay. So, but my questions will come with your this point. You have explained about yourself. So I'll come to Arvind sir. Like first, then you have said why I see the journey. Interest might be different because during YIC I was with him. So there was a very different kind of sort of interest. But right now, what interest he is having to yoga, that is of different level. So I wanted to know why that difference came in that period of time. What was the thin line difference you have created for your journey?
Okay, so actually, when I started with YIC, I had completed my graduation. I had finished my engineering in computer science, but I was not employed anywhere. I did not apply for any IT job. So I just wanted a nice place to spend 1 month of time right after my graduation. So I looked at it more like a summer camp kind of a program. But the teachers who I met there actually changed my complete view about yoga. In a way, they changed my life completely. I really have to mention Subramaniam ji, Professor Subramaniam. The lectures he used to give in the Maitri Milan really changed me. It really changed my understanding about life. One thing he used to always say is that if you study mechanical engineering, you will know about machines. If you study computer science, you will know about computer languages. If you study, let's say, painting, you will know about painting. But if you study yoga, you will know about yourself. So yoga is not a subject which you will know, but yoga is yourself. You're studying yoga and learning yoga is about learning yourself. So that one talk what he gave really made a deep impact in my mind. Also Vasudev Bhaiya, he also, the lectures he used to give really changed me. Rajesh Acharya ji, the lectures he used to give really changed me. Largely to the question what you asked, what changed in my understanding, and compare my current understanding with the understanding I had during the YIC days, I would like to give 100% of the credits to my teachers. Not just in SVyasa, but outside of SVyasa also. Some of the in Shivananda Ashram, some of the yoga teachers I met, some of the Vedanta teachers I met. It's completely because of their guidance. I'm able to say that my understanding has changed, improved, and how I can say it has improved is just like what she was telling, that she couldn't remember the last time when she was angry. In the same way, in my case, the amount of clarity I got towards life, towards myself, towards God, towards creation, that clarity changed everything. That clarity is entirely because of the teachers. So what is the reason for my refined understanding is 100% the Guru Parampara. In SVyasa, it is particularly Subramaniam ji, because he is the first person who actually made an impact on my mind. The first person. After that, many people made, but I am eternally grateful to him, really.
Thank you for that. And I just made another question to you that, Madam, I'm like, everyone says I have calmed my mind. There is very calmness in there in my mind. What is the subtle difference between calmness? How you can differentiate with your experience, any one experience you can share with all of us?
Mm, Instead of experience, I will give you a practical tool that will help calculate your calmness of
That
mind.
is great.
So this has come from my teacher, so all credits to him. Uh, this is from Swami Paramarthananda ji. So he says measure your FIR. So F stands for frequency, I stands for intensity and R stands for recovery time. And this is for measuring the emotional disturbances in your mind. So frequency means how often you get angry or upset or disturbed. Intensity means how intense the disturbance is. Are you just little irritated, or are you throwing vessels at somebody, or is it even more? And then the third thing, R, recovery time, is how much time it takes for you to come back to normal. Do you come back to normal in 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week? How much time it takes? So all these three, FIR, has to be low. Frequency has to be low, intensity has to be low, recovery time also has to be low. So this is how you measure, and this is how you know that you are becoming more and more calm. And how to do this? You have to work on yourself. You can do any number of sadhanas. You can, there are many things. Modern psychology also has lots of tips and techniques. In, of course, yoga, we have so many techniques. Otherwise also, if you just find with yourself, if you just observe yourself also, it will start working. Just try to measure your own FIR every single day, and little by little it will reduce. That's how you know you're becoming a calm person.
This concept, must say that even I have not heard about it after completing my so many years in the field of yoga. And this is required for all of us to understand that it does not complete in your 5 years or 10 years. It takes your life to complete or understand a journey, how you have said, understanding yourself. So my next question to both of you, what was the difficulties during your learning process? Because you were from the corporate background, you know things to be very fast, but yoga does not work in that way. It needs a time from your side. And how you have find right form of yoga, because in India or in outside, every day new form of yoga is born. So what is the right form of yoga according to you, and you are practicing it?
Now, what is the right form of yoga? The answer to that can be, very subjective. Depends on what objective you have for the practice of yoga. Like, very simple question is, when somebody joins my class, when somebody comes for an inquiry to join my class, one of the definite questions I ask them is, why are you joining? Like, what are you expecting out of the class? Like, most of the times the answer will be weight loss or back pain or migraine or knee pain. They must be going through a lot of stress related problems, and most of the time that will be the answer. But that alone need not be the answer. Like, for example, when I joined the yoga course first time in YIC, if somebody had asked me why did you join YIC, my answer is time pass. I did not know anything about yoga. I just wanted to join to see what it is, out of curiosity. But after every course, after my YIC, whatever course I've done, everything after my YIC, I've joined purely out of the interest of the subject. So what I was looking for, that decides what kind of yoga I approach. If I'm looking for a perfect body and perfect alignments and perfect movement of the muscles and bones and everything, maybe one particular kind of yoga is appropriate. If I am looking for more of a mental practice, something to calm my mind, like what she said, the FIR, to calm down reduce the FIR, to bring more peace, another kind of yoga may be appropriate. If I am looking for little more, some supernatural experiences, what we see in movies and all, maybe some other kind of practice may be there which is appropriate. So depending on what your objective is, depending on what you are expecting out of the practice, you choose this particular kind of yoga practice. For me, getting into Shivananda Yoga was also a matter of luck, honestly. I did not know much about it. I knew after I finished my YIC, one thing which I very surely knew was I have to do one more yoga course. I have to learn about the subject a little more deeper, because like I said, one realization what I got in YIC is that even if I spend my whole lifetime in studying this, time is not enough. There is so much to learn. This one understanding I had very clearly. So I did not want to waste time. I just wanted to join one more yoga course whenever, wherever, however possible. It's a matter of luck, Ishwara's grace, that somehow I got to know about Shivananda Yoga. I joined, and literally my life changed after that. Everything changed. Whatever I was looking for, everything was served in a platter and offered to me, and one go. So yeah, that's how it happened to me. Yeah, depending on the objective, basically, whatever I'm expecting, that decides where I have to go. But most people, that is the sad part, is most people actually don't clearly know what they want. If you ask the person why exactly are you joining the yoga class, if the answer is crystal clear, saying that yes, I'm joining yoga class for weight loss, I appreciate that, really. But most of the times we ourselves don't know why we are in a particular course. That phase takes some time. You will get the clarity, but until you get the clarity, you will be kind of going all the directions, not heading anywhere correctly.
As for your other question about what were the challenges that we faced during the learning phases, I think one of the biggest challenges most people, including me, we face is getting distracted very easily. Like, you want to learn, but maybe you're distracted by family life, work life, corporate life, as you said. My corporate life was so hectic, I couldn't find time to practice yoga. Finally, I had to quit that job. So that was one kind of distraction. Another kind of distraction is within the yoga field. I'll try this yoga, I'll try that yoga, I'll try tomorrow something else. Again, distracted. If something has to work on you, you have to choose one thing, hold on to it with your life, whole life. Then it will work. Maybe a little, maybe. But still you can't leave it. That is the commitment. That is the biggest challenge, I think. People get distracted easily, they get demotivated easily, you lose hope quickly. All of that happens, but still you should hang on despite it all.
One example I would like to share here is that when we were doing my teacher's training course at Shivananda Ashram, my teacher used to say that if you are digging a bore well, you have to consistently dig the bore well at one particular point. Even if it takes like 50 feet, 80 feet, 100 feet, 150 feet, you have to continue to do it. But after digging 30 feet, if you think that, okay, water is not coming, so let me try at one more place and start afresh at one more place. And after digging another 40 feet, you say that, okay, water is not coming here also, so let me try one more place, and you go to the third place and start digging. Like this, you keep doing for 10 times. You would have digged 10 short holes where you did not get water anywhere. Instead, you stick to one place and go till the end. You are assured that water will come. The same way, whichever style, whichever tradition of yoga or any spiritual practice you choose, it is very important to stay with that one tradition at least for a consistent amount of time. Few years, let's say, at least a few years, stay with that one tradition, and then give that time for that tradition to work on you. But if you decide to explore, like what Swamiji used to say, like if you do spiritual shopping, hopping from one school to the other, one tradition to the other, you would have dug 10 different holes but did not get water anywhere.
This is a very good example, because everywhere, even as a student, I was there, everyone wants to do Ashtanga, Iyengar, every school of yoga. I don't know what benefits they are getting, but yeah, if they do 40,000, they are spending on Ashtanga, 50,000 Iyengar for 1 month course, certification course. And it is very basic. Every individual who are in the yoga field, they want to do Ashtanga. They are not clear what physical they are getting, mental they are getting. And what you have said with a clear-cut example, if you want to be insisted, like if you are practicing Shivananda yoga, do that for a years of time to, and it will give results to the people to whom you are teaching. That's a very big thing. We are making a change. So my next question, that you both come from a culture where human generation is not there. Misleading is more than kind of a human lifestyle corporate where the timings are not there. You have to be there on a screen for longer duration, and you have evolved your times from there. Like day and night was changed to like morning Brahma Muhurta, you have to get up. This is a yoga lifestyle. So what was the difficulties, or how was the process a student or an individual wanted to become in that way? If I want to become in that way, like what is the process from your side?
The answer, it's a very nice question. The answer to that is actually very simple. It is the priority. What is your priority? Like, my Vedanta teacher, he always says that we all want moksha. All of us, we want self-enlightenment. But what is the priority number? At this age, I want to marry, I want to have a kid, I want to own a house, I want to own a car, I want to travel Europe, I want to go, Switzerland, I want to do everything. In the end, I want moksha also. This is a kind of, priority list we have. I want to do all the material things first. In the end, if time is there still, okay, I will want moksha also. As if it is some, topping on a cake. You just take it on choice. This is the situation most of us find ourselves in. If your priority number one is moksha, you will get it immediately. In the same way, here also, if your priority number one is to live a yogic lifestyle, let us not talk about moksha here, let us talk about a simple healthy lifestyle, right? Many of us want to get up early in the morning. Many of us want to get up early and practice yoga in the morning. But is the problem. The moment you say but, it starts. But I slept late last night. But I have work, early in the morning. But I have to attend the family. But I have to do something else. So all these are bigger priorities than getting up and practicing yoga. If that is the situation, you will never get up, you will never do it. Getting up at 4 o'clock and practicing yoga alone is the priority, nothing else comes first, this alone comes first. If that is the priority number one, then everything else can wait. Your office can wait, you can accommodate the office timings, you can accommodate the job, accommodate the family, accommodate the children, everything can be accommodated, because getting up early in the morning and practicing yoga cannot be accommodated. That is number one. That is the number one priority. If we have such a priority, life becomes easy. But that is the problem, right? Most of us, we don't have such a priority. We are yoga teachers, we also struggle this, right? It's not easy to get up at 4 o'clock and practice yoga. Sometimes it happens, like 4 or 5 times in a week. If you do it, it's a success. On a Saturday night, when you sleep, Sunday morning, getting up at 4 o'clock is not a joke, because it is Sunday. Mind fights, it's like rebellious mind doesn't let you get up. But if that is the priority, you will get up. So it all lies in priority. We need to check our priorities. We need to set our priorities right.
I think the ongoing Olympics are a very nice example for this. You ask some of the players, especially the Indian players who come from very rural backgrounds. I'm sure all the stories are there now on the news and everything. Some of them come from such bad backgrounds. Family doesn't support, government doesn't support, friends don't support, health doesn't support, finances don't support. Nothing supports. Still they have made it to Olympics. You ask them how, why? The answer is only one. They said, I wanted this, I did this. It's the same, what he said about priority. In spirituality, they keep saying, get rid of your desires. I would say just keep the right desires. That's all you need to do. Don't get rid of desires. Just convert it into the correct desires. That's all. And it will drive you wherever you want to go.
The example in the formation of how you have explained, it is very good, and it makes a very good impact that desires we all have. I want this, I want my PG, PhD, this award, that award, Olympics, everywhere the desires are there. But if a right desire is there with your right approach, desire with approach is required to reach that goal. So that you have explained very clearly. And my next question would to you, nowadays every person who learn yoga wants to give something unique in their practice. If you are teaching means it's something you are giving from your side. Everyone in the yoga, in the community of yoga, they want to give something unique to every student or participants coming to them. You have opened a very good Vedanta school. You didn't say it's a studio. If I talk, everyone said it's a studio. You said to me it's a Vedanta school. There is a very thin line difference, a studio or a school. The change is there in that word itself. And after that, what made you to choose the concept of this Arsha Samyoga for the betterment of human life? So what was your thought that it came to this and you stick, yeah, your life is there and you can change a human life from this?
It's because we have first hand experienced it ourselves. So we know the power of this teaching. I know that everyone wants to offer something new and unique to the students and all. But actually, to tell you honestly, I don't want to. Everything that we teach here, it's nothing is mine, nothing is his. Everything has come from our teachers and we owe everything to them, 100%. And we want to teach without changing anything. At least I would love to teach without adding any of my own thing or without changing anything. I want to, because what has come works. It is magic. Why to change? Why to, when something is already beautiful, why you want to add your own thing and see if it becomes more beautiful? Maybe it may, but when it is already working, then it's great to just carry on what has been taught. So what we try to teach here is just what we have learnt. There is nothing new that we have added as such. Everything is just what we have learnt, maybe in a little different presentation, maybe some different words we may use, but otherwise nothing else is different. And it does work. I have seen so much change in my own life in the last 5 years or so. There is so much maturity, so much emotional stability, so much more peace. I'm able to handle any situation, face anything, whether it is a bad situation or a good situation, both you can handle very nicely. And I have seen this in my own life, so I know that it will work on everybody. So this is what inspired us to teach.
See, like what I said in the very beginning, my current understanding of whatever I'm doing in life, I give 100% credits to my teachers. In other words, my teachers basically changed my whole life. They changed my whole understanding about life. Now, I want to be one such teacher to the future generations. That is the only desire. If that is the only desire, I don't have any scope to add anything new, because I just received whatever was pristine knowledge, from centuries together, the knowledge, flown down in the Guru Parampara, and it was offered to me in a nice platter. I want to pass it on to the next generation. I want to be the next one such teacher who guides people. But if I add extra masala, extra salt to it, extra spice to it, I might actually ruin the recipe. It's a very beautiful recipe. Let us just pass it on. That is the only goal.
Maybe the goal is very simple. Okay. I'll just ask you one thing because it inspired me a lot, and that's why I asked you that can we talk? It's not about the exploration, it's just a talk. This is a wall you have created. It's very simple. You have that's a logo of a light is there. Okay, you have kept two pictures. Why these two, and what is the meaning of this logo? Because it means a lot, but I am not known to that. So can you clear it?
Right, so in the middle you see the logo which says AS. AS stands for Arsha Samyoga. On top you see that there is a lamp, and in between there's an infinity symbol on the lamp. So you can say it's an infinity lamp. So the lamp represents knowledge, specifically self-knowledge, Atma Jnanam, or the Vedantic teaching, you can say. And what is the result of this Atmajnanam? It is moksha. Moksha is represented by the infinity symbol, the infinitude, Purnatvam, we can say. So that is the logo. And the photos, that photo on that side is Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswati ji. He started the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam schools of Vedanta, and we are very honored and very humbled at the same time to be a part of that lineage of Vedanta. And on this side we have Swami Shivananda ji. He has started the Divine Life Society in Rishikesh. So under his tradition we have learnt yoga. So that is why School of Yoga and Vedanta.
That is so great that Arvind sir said to me, like, she will just explain. And that is very true, that what you have said, that lamp, if you have that knowledge, you will reach to moksha, and that's what defines the infinity there. And just a question with your explanation, that everyone says philosophy does not work everywhere. We always talk about philosophy. We just talk about philosophy everywhere. This is that, this is that. Actually, is it working? So how you will explain to any patient or participant comes to you, they will say to you, you are talking just philosophy. How can we experience? They can experience. You have experienced, that's very fine. But how can they experience that philosophy?
The thing is that it does work. Okay, the philosophy, we can never say that Vedanta or the teaching is wrong. The only thing that might be wrong is your receptivity. So for that, you have to work on yourself. First, you have to get enough tranquility in the mind, enough emotional maturity in the mind. Then when Vedanta gives you a truth, it is not even a philosophy, it is a truth. So truth cannot be called a philosophy, right? So when it gives you a truth, you are able to digest, because there's no resistance in the mind. Like for example, in Vedanta frequently we talk about death. A lot of people, they don't even say the word death in the house, you know. So much emotional panic comes if you just say death. But it is true, no? We will all die one day. Everyone dies. Who lives forever? But to accept this statement that everyone dies, yes, I will also die, not just me, my family will die, my parents will die, my teachers will die, my children also will die. It is such a harsh statement. Can anyone say this very peacefully? It is very difficult, no? That emotional reactivity has to calm down. Then you will see that, yeah, everyone dies one day. Who doesn't die? The tree outside will die. I will also die. Everyone dies. So when you accept this truth, then there is a lot more peace in the mind. But the moment resistance comes, the moment emotional reactions come, there's a problem. Vedanta is trying to tell you a truth, but you are resisting. So is it Vedanta's fault or your fault?
See, we have two faculties in us. One is the emotional mind, one is the more rational intellect, right? The moment you ask me to do this event here with you, I can react to it in two ways, emotionally, or I can use my rational and I can think and decide what is right, what is wrong. But if my emotions are very turbulent, very strong emotions if I have, that means I don't have any space for rational thinking. Either emotion exists or rational thinking exists at a given time, right? Both cannot be strong. Both emotion and intellect cannot be dominant at a given time. Either emotion will be dominant or intellect will be dominant. Like what she said, we all die one day or the other. It's a fact, right? All the great kings who lived in the past died. All the great scientists who lived in the past died. All the great artists died. The strongest of the animals died. In fact, if you take a telescope and look outside, you will see that entire stars die. One entire galaxy dies. entire galaxy dies. It is possible. So death is inevitable. But the moment you hear the word death, if your emotions get turbulent, that means you don't have any state of mind to analyze it and understand it and accept it that death is inevitable. Your emotions are so turbulent that it doesn't let you think only. You will immediately shut the person's mouth. You'll say, Shubh Shubh Bolo, don't talk like that, Shubh Shubh Bolo. Shubh Shubh Bolo is good, but by Shubh Shubh Bolo doesn't mean death is, death can be avoided indefinitely, right? So, this is the point. One famous example somebody told me was, there is a black dog in your mind and there is a white dog in your mind. If these two dogs fight, which dog will win? Right? The answer to that is very simple. Whichever dog you feed first, whichever dog you feed, that dog is stronger and that dog will win the fight. The same way, you strengthen the emotions or you strengthen the intellect. You keep investing more of your energies in the emotion, or you keep investing more of your energies in the intellect. Whichever you invest, that will become stronger. And if intellect becomes stronger, that means you won't take emotional decisions in life. That means you will take correct decisions in life. But if you keep investing your energies in the emotions, you don't have time for Vedanta in your life. You are too busy crying for somebody, or you don't have time for rational thinking. You are emotionally lost. That is a tragedy. That should not happen.
That's a very good example was given by you, that you should think in that way, that rationalism should not be there in your work, or so that I should think about myself through intellect, not my friend is working there, my friend is doing that, and my family says that to do that job, this job. I wanted to do this, and that's what I'm doing. So that makes a very good difference. You have worked year, like if I talk, you have worked in CureFit for 1.5 years. She has worked in Nemhans for 1 year. Okay. So there is a difference of working style in both the centers. What is the difference in that place and what is the difference now you are practicing?
The difference is in the objective of the practice itself. Like I keep coming back to the same answer. The objective decides your process which you choose to practice. In CureFit, the objective was fitness alone, physical fitness. Right? It was more about you build a strong body, athlete's body. Right? You would see a lot of slogans written on the wall everywhere, which motivates you to be like an athlete, physically very strong, very strong stamina wise, strength wise. It was more about that. Here in the place currently what we have started, the name itself says School of Yoga and Vedanta. Fitness is certainly there here, but that is not the only priority. That is not the only objective. Right? The objective is yoga for yogyata. Yogyata means qualification, eligibility. So we use yoga as a process to build more eligibility in us. Now the obvious question is, eligibility for what? Eligibility for spiritual progress in the path of Vedanta. So using yoga for yogyata, that is the objective here. We use yoga asanas, we use pranayamas, we use meditation, we use Veda mantras, we use satsangs, we use conversations like this what we are having now. We use all these things to build more yogyata in us, to build more eligibility in us. That is the primary objective. If you want to be an athlete, this is not the place. We are not going to make you an athlete. But if you want to build better yogyata and progress in your spiritual path, we really promise you to help you in this direction.
As for Nimans, one of the main things they are trying to do there is use yoga to help patients with psychiatric problems. So they work with a team. It is not yoga alone. It is with a team of psychiatric doctors, counselors, psychologists, and also yoga and even Ayurveda. So a whole team is working on the patient. That is the idea over there. Here, this is not treatment. What we do here is not treatment. We are trying to help uh, regular people reach a little higher goal in life. That's all.
You have made it very clear this is not a treatment. And those who are watching it, they should understand it. What is a treatment? What is a therapy? And what is a session, a yoga session? Always a yoga session would not be a therapy for you. Might be a good therapy for yourself, but not a therapy for physical ailments. So you have made it very clear, and this is what every studio, if they are opening, every individual who wants to become an yoga, like famous yogi, they have to understand what they are doing. And my last question would not be extending this session for both of you. Any three shlokas you want to dedicate to all of us? Any three which would have a very good, meaningful approach for our life? Three shlokas you want to chant now or possibly.
We'll chant 5.
Starting prayers.
That's very great.
Yeah, even I was going to say the same thing.
So we'll just chant the prayer we chant here in our yoga center, and they're really meaningful ones. The first one is an obeisance to Ganesha. So to remove all the obstacles in whichever path we choose. Second one is to Saraswati, because every subject, every moment in life, we are here to learn something new, and she is the goddess of knowledge. So Saraswati. Third one is the Guru Parampara, starting from Adi Yogi, Adi Guru Shiva, through the Guru Parampara, reaching up to us. So showing our obeisance to the Guru Parampara. Fourth one is interesting one, which talks about the yoga for yogyata part, what we just discussed. It is a shloka from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which says that the Hatha Yoga practice, what you do, the physical postures, physical yoga practice, what you do, should necessarily lead you to more subtler and higher practice of Raja Yoga. And the fifth one is a Shanti mantra, universal Shanti mantra, Sahanavati. So we'll just chant all 5. We'll start with one Omkara. Slowly inhale. शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये सरस्वति नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ श्री आदिनाथाय नमोऽस्तु तस्मै येनोपदिष्टा हठयोगविद्या विभ्राजते प्रोन्नतराजयोगम् आरोढुमिच्छोरधिरोहिणीव ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
It's a very good vibration. And I must say, I'll just use this recording. It's the three mantras, what you have really, it means a lot. So we have come to end our session, but I have learned something, and I'll just tell to both of you that what I have learned. Three things I have learned: that we should give credits to our teacher. Whatever you learn from them, always in your life, whatever you learn, just a small thing also, you give credits that what you have learned from your teacher. You should have objective, whatever kind of yoga, whatever type of yoga, whatever life you wanted to do in yoga, objective should be very clear. And you should not have but in your life, but you should cut that but and have priority in your life. So if I cut my butt, I will have more priority in my life. And last is yogyata. You have spoken very clearly about yogyata. It's not somebody will buy yogyata from any school of yoga. It's the interest or the receptivity of the Vedanta that gives you that yogyata. So summarizes with this session that thank you so much. Thank you very much that you have spared 45 minutes with all of us, taking from first to the last, explaining everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure is ours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Namaste.
Namaste.